My name is Nadia. I was not only young, but also very beautiful. I was 28 years old, and like other girls, I dreamed of getting married. But I was bound by responsibilities. Even if I wanted, I couldn't marry. When I was 15 years old, my father left us and departed from this world. At that time, my brother was 5 years old, and my sister was 8. My mother was devastated by my father's death, crying uncontrollably and asking why he had left her alone in this world. She kept saying, "You left this world, leaving me with the burden of 3 children. Who will take care of these kids now? My eldest daughter is just 15, and how will I raise these 2 little ones without you?" At that moment, I decided that I would become my mother's support. My mother somehow managed to educate me, and when I grew up, I became her pillar of strength. She worked in people's homes and also sewed clothes. Despite doing so many jobs, she made sure I reached this stage of life. In return, I felt it was my duty to support her. After completing my education, I started working. I had been working for 6 years, and due to my capabilities, I was promoted to a higher post in the same company with a better salary. I was also educating my younger brother and sister. My mother had grown old now, and people used to tell her to think about my marriage, saying, "Your daughter is young and beautiful. Why don't you think about her marriage? How long will she keep working?" But my mother always replied that I didn't want to get married yet. I had already told my mother that I didn't want to marry until my brother and sister became successful. I wanted to see them settle in their careers first. If I got married before that, who would look after my siblings and my elderly mother? I wasn't in a hurry to get married, and everything was going well. After I got my job, I didn't face any major problems. I wasn't in love with any guy because I simply didn't have time for love. I had heard that people in love dedicate time and attention to each other, and that's the proof of their love. But I didn't have the luxury of time for any of that. I could barely take care of myself. My entire day was spent in the office. However, over the 7 years, things had changed to the point where I could now go to the office as per my convenience. I was very capable and had earned everyone's trust in the company through my hard work. The difficult times had passed, and I had started living a good life while providing the same for my brother and sister. Life was tough, but I had to face it all for the sake of my mother and siblings. I had a few friends who visited me on Sundays. All of them had boyfriends and were in love, dreaming of getting married. Watching them talk to their boyfriends made me happy, and I wished I had someone who loved me like that. They would share sweet moments and conversations with their boyfriends, and I used to wonder if my life could ever be like that. If only all my problems disappeared, maybe I could have a beautiful life like theirs. I reminded myself to be patient and stay strong. I believed that one day God would listen to my prayers, and I would find a good partner. But then I would ask myself, when will that happen? I'm already 28. If 3 or 4 more years pass, I will be past the age for marriage. I didn't know when everything would be okay. I always prayed to God to set things right soon so that I could also live a happy life with my partner. But before that, I wanted my family's life to become easier and better. My mother always worried about my marriage and told me, "You are sacrificing your own happiness to secure your brother and sister's future." My mother used to reassure me, saying, "God will reward you for all your hard work, and you'll see, you'll find a wonderful life partner. The man you marry will treat you like a queen in his home." Her words made me so happy, and deep down, I wished that all her prayers would come true. We didn't have any relatives who shared our joys and sorrows because, after my father's death, his family had cut all ties with us. My mother didn't have many relatives either, just one maternal uncle, who lived in another country with his family. We occasionally talked to him over the phone, but he never visited us. No matter how much I tried to control my emotions regarding marriage, they often overwhelmed me, especially at night. Most girls my age were already married, and some even had 1 or 2 children. When I was alone at night, I often wished I had a boyfriend with whom I could share my loneliness, even if it was just talking on the phone. I had stopped meeting my married friends because whenever we did meet, they would start sharing their married life stories. Listening to their experiences stirred emotions in me, but I always controlled my feelings, thinking about my brother and sister's future. It wasn't that I was desperate to get married. I just longed for companionship, like most people in this modern age. Today, almost every girl has a boyfriend or husband with whom she shares her ups and downs. Even my brother and sister weren't close enough to share jokes or spend much time with me, as they were mostly busy with their studies. My sister was about to complete her graduation, after which she planned to get a job, while my brother was still pursuing his degree. Life continued this way, and before I knew it, I turned 30. My mother finally said, "I won't listen to you anymore. You've sacrificed so much for us, and you've worked through the prime of your life. As soon as your sister gets a job, I'll arrange your marriage so you can start your own family." I replied, "It's not enough for just my sister to get a job. I want to wait until my brother finds one too. After that, I'll consider marriage." My mother insisted, "No, dear, that will take too long." Somehow, I managed to calm and reassure her. I had my own scooter, which I used for commuting to and from the office. One day, I noticed a beggar who had been wandering around our neighborhood for quite a few days. Our area was quite large, but I had been seeing him there every day for the past week. One day, I stopped my scooter and began to observe him closely. For some reason, I felt compelled to stop and look at him. The beggar was wearing torn, dirty clothes and looked unkempt. I felt sorry for him, so I called him over and took a 100 rupee note from my purse to give to him. I told him, "I don't have any smaller change right now, just take this." Hearing this, he smiled and put the note in his bag. From then on, I started giving him money whenever I saw him. Once, I even saw him begging on the sidewalk. I was on my scooter, passing by, and I gave him some money then too. This became a regular occurrence. Every other day, as soon as I reached home, he would already be in the neighborhood, waiting for me. As soon as he saw me arrive at my door, he would rush over to ask for money. I gave him some each time, but what puzzled me was the way he stared at me afterward. He would stand there, looking at me intently for a long time. Ignoring his gaze, I would quickly go inside my house. This behavior continued, and I couldn't understand why he looked at me so helplessly. I thought maybe he was hungry and decided to give him food occasionally. One night, after dinner, I looked out the window and saw him walking around near my house. I called out to him and asked him to come to the door. I packed some food and went to give it to him. As I handed him the food, I was startled again. He stared at my face in the same strange way, his eyes fixed on me for a long time. Even as he reached out to take the food, his hand remained in the same position, unmoving. I asked him, "What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? Take the food and leave." My words seemed to snap him out of his daze. He took the food and started to walk away, but then turned back to look at me again. I thought to myself that the beggar must have lost his mind. Shaking my head, I closed the door and went back to my room. Over time, I noticed that this beggar often appeared around our neighborhood. One day, I decided to speak with him directly. I told him, "You can come and take dinner from our house every night. You seem to be very poor." He replied, "Yes, I have no one here. It would be a great favor if you could give me food." I agreed and told him to come by at night for his meal. True to his word, he arrived at the exact time for dinner each night. I had already told my mother about the beggar. I told her that I had asked him to come to our house at night to collect food. I asked her to prepare the food on time. My mother said, "That's a good thing you've done. Feeding a hungry person is a great deed." Just then, there was a knock at the door. I looked out the window and saw it was the same beggar. My mother quickly packed the food and handed it to me so I could give it to him. Today, when I handed him the food box, he grabbed my hand and said he wanted to talk to me. I became very nervous when he held my hand. I looked around, wondering what kind of behavior this was. When he saw fear on my face, he said, "There's no need to be scared. I just need to talk to you about something important." I asked, "What do you need? Do you want money or more food?" He replied, No, no, I don't need such help. I just want to express what's in my heart. I asked, What do you mean? Fine, tell me, what do you want to say? He said, I've started liking you. I've been watching you for a long time. You have captured my heart. When I see your face, I feel like I don't want to take my eyes off you. Hearing this, I got angry and said, What nonsense are you talking about? Aren't you ashamed of saying such things? You look like a poor beggar, but your words are very romantic. How dare someone like you talk like this? He replied, A person feels ashamed only when they do something wrong. I'm not doing anything wrong. I have just fallen in love with you, and I'm expressing my love honestly. I told him to stop his nonsense and leave. If you want food, you can come from tomorrow. But if you continue talking like this, I will shout and let the entire neighborhood know that you're saying inappropriate things to me. He replied, I am not afraid of anyone. I just like you. Will you marry me? I was shocked to hear this. Despite everything I had said to him, he still had the confidence to propose to me directly. I quickly handed him the food and slammed the door shut. I went back inside my house, disturbed by his words. That night, I kept thinking about what had happened. The next day at work, my friend noticed my worry and asked what was bothering me. I told her about the beggar. She said, Let me explain why that beggar proposed to you. He must have thought, She's an educated, beautiful girl and earns well. If I trap her in my love, everything she earns will be mine, and I won't even need to beg anymore. He thinks you're a fool. I said, You're right. Why did he think I would fall for him? He must be out of his mind. He looks so filthy. No girl would even glance at him. My friend advised, If he talks to you like this again, threaten him by saying you'll report him to the police. That will scare him off. I agreed with her advice. I now understood why the beggar had proposed to me. He might be trying the same trick on other girls in the neighborhood, but I wasn't going to fall for it. The next day, when the beggar came for food, I went to give it to him. Once again, he repeated the same thing. This time, I raised my voice and said, You're a beggar, and I'm letting you go because of that. If it were anyone else, I'd shout and have the neighborhood beat them up. Leave quietly before I take some serious action. But to my shock, he laughed at my words. He said, I'm not afraid of anyone. I only love you. Don't beat around the bush. Just tell me directly if you love me or not. I replied, You're quite something. I know the truth about you now. When I said that to him, his facial expressions suddenly changed, and he asked, What exactly do you know about me? I replied, I know everything, who you are and what's going on in your mind. Hearing this, he looked at me with surprise and asked, What are you trying to say? What do you know about me? Tell me as well. I said, You're trying to fool me. You think I'll fall for your love trap, and then you'll live a lavish life on the money I earn. Hearing this, he took a deep breath and said, So that's what you think? Fine, keep your food and your charity to yourself. If that's how you see me, I don't even want your alms. Saying this, he turned and walked away. I stood there, holding the food box, watching him leave, lost in strange thoughts. He didn't even take the food today. I thought, what a proud man. Despite everything I said, he didn't even take the food. For now, I took the food box back inside. My younger sister asked, Dee, who were you talking to? I told her, a beggar had come to get food. She asked, Then why didn't the beggar take the food? You've brought it back. I replied, I don't know why he didn't take it. I placed the food box in the kitchen and returned to my room, still thinking about what the beggar wanted from me. For now, I tried to put it out of my mind. I had to focus on my career and not waste time on such trivial matters. Several days passed like this. I would sometimes see him, and when I called out to give him money, he wouldn't come to take it. He had completely stopped coming to collect food, but whenever he saw me, he would just keep staring at me. I couldn't understand the meaning of his behavior. Months went by like this. Occasionally, I would see him, and a couple of times, I even saw him near my office. But every time, he was alone. Perhaps he had no one in this world. He would just look at me from a distance. I started feeling pity for him. Was it possible that he truly loved me? Because quite a long time had passed, and he hadn't tried to talk to me again. Even when I called out to him, he kept his distance. He would watch me from afar, but never had the courage to approach me. Not for alms, not for food, and not even to talk. One day, I was lying in my room, deep in thought about this beggar. I wondered, does he really love me? If he didn't, why would he look at me with such helpless eyes? Not the way he used to before. And if he had been trying to fool me, wouldn't he have tried to pursue me again after I scolded him once? Instead, he had completely cut off contact with me. Yet, I could still see love for me in his eyes. Finally, I made a decision. It was probably a wrong one, but what could I do? I had started to pity him, and perhaps I had also started to lose my heart to him. What I was about to do didn't feel right, because there was no match between him and me. I was a well-educated, beautiful girl from a middle-class family, earning a decent income. And what was he? A simple, poorly dressed, shabby-looking, poor beggar. Who knows where he lived, where he slept, or how many homes he begged at just to survive? Many times, my heart told me to stop paying attention to him. But then, I would remind myself that he was the only one who dared to look at me without fear, and had captivated me with his gaze. I thought, if he genuinely doesn't want to take advantage of me, then I'll marry him. I'll set up a small business for him, and I won't quit my job either. That's how I'll spend my life. I wasn't hungry for money. All I wanted was love and attention. If he could give me love and care for me all his life, that would be enough for me. The next day, I decided to talk to him. But strangely, I hadn't seen him anywhere for the past 2 days. I wondered where he had gone. Then one day, I saw him outside a shopping mall when I was out shopping with my friends. I didn't tell my friends about it because I knew they would make fun of me. Their boyfriends were either doctors, engineers, or sons of wealthy families. If they found out I was going after a beggar, they would ridicule me endlessly. Avoiding my friends, I went to meet him. It was a crowded area, so I asked him to come to the park with me. He followed me to the park. Once there, I asked him, "Why do you keep staring at me like that?" He replied, "I've even stopped taking food from your house because, according to you, I might take advantage of you. But when my eyes land on your face, I can't help myself. I can't control my gaze, though I do control my actions. Every time you appear in front of me, my eyes can't stop admiring your face. What can I do? I love you." I asked, "Are you telling the truth?" He said, "Yes, I am. I've never seen a girl as beautiful as you in my life. I've even heard people in your neighborhood praising you. That has only increased my respect for you. A woman from your neighborhood told me you haven't gotten married yet because you're prioritizing your siblings' futures. She said you're working hard, supporting your family, and taking care of everyone on your own. That's when I realized how rare girls like you are in this world. You are such a wonderful girl who has sacrificed a lot for her family without thinking about herself. That's when I lost my heart to you. I promise you, I am just a beggar. What use could I possibly be to you? You can come to me empty-handed if you wish. I don't need your job. Even if I have to beg for the rest of my life to fulfill your wishes, I will never ask you to work." Hearing this beggar's words, I suddenly became emotional. He cared so much about me. It dawned on me that in this life, apart from my mother, no one else had ever cared so deeply for me. This was a man whose words melted my heart. I could no longer control myself, and I confessed to him that I had fallen in love with him too. This marked the beginning of a romantic relationship between us. I told him, "You are a beggar. It feels a bit odd. Can't you leave this work and do something else?" He replied, "I'm very poor and I have no choice. Pray that I succeed in one particular task, and after that, I'll become whatever you want me to be." When I asked him about the task, he hesitated and said, "Don't think too much about it. You go home. I'll come to your house at night to collect food. The food from your house is delicious." I agreed and left, but he was on my mind constantly. Every day, he would come to my house to collect food, and during these visits, we would talk a lot. He had promised to marry me. What I liked most about him was that despite being in a relationship for 2 months, he only ever met me at the door of my house. Unlike my friends, who would meet their boyfriends at their rooms, restaurants, or shopping centers, he could not take me shopping because he was poor. But for him, there was no place better than my doorstep to talk to me. I started liking him more and more. His name was Rahi. They say that when you fall in love, even a beggar feels like a king. And for me, Rahi was nothing less than a king. I told Rahi that as soon as my brother and sister got jobs, I would marry him. Rahi had no problem with that. He said, "In the meantime, I'll buy a house of my own, and as soon as I have my own home, I'll take you with me." Months passed, and no one knew about our love. I had decided that once my siblings got jobs, I would stop giving money to my family and instead help Rahi start a business so he could stop begging. My mom could never accept me marrying a beggar. I was deeply in love with Rahi and fully devoted to him. My life felt complete because I had someone who cared for me and shared my joys and sorrows. But one day, Rahi suddenly disappeared. When I didn't see him one day, I thought he might be visiting a relative or unwell. But days turned into weeks, and he didn't return. I searched for him everywhere, but it was as if he had vanished. For a whole month, I was restless and crying for him, but I had no way to find him. No address, no contact number, nothing. I was heartbroken and silent, unable to focus on anything. Meanwhile, my sister got a job, which should have made me happy, but I felt hollow inside. Months passed, and I finally gave up looking for Rahi, though I still missed him deeply. My mom then gave me another stress. She wanted to arrange my marriage now that my sister had secured a job. I tried to resist, but my mom insisted. Eventually, I gave in, and soon the day came when a prospective groom's family came to visit. I wasn't dressed up, nor was I interested. I sat quietly, thinking about Rahi, while the boy's mother asked me questions. Suddenly, someone walked into the house and called out my name. "Nadia!" Startled, I looked up. The voice seemed familiar, but I couldn't recognize the person. He called my name again and asked, "What's going on here?" My brother stood up and demanded to know who he was. The man said, "I love your sister. I can't see her becoming someone else's." The boy's family was shocked and left in anger. My mother and brother were furious, and my brother grabbed the man by his collar. The man calmly said, "Please let me explain. I am Rahi." I was stunned. This was Rahi, but he looked entirely different. He revealed that he was actually a police officer, not a beggar. He explained that he had been working undercover as a beggar to catch a child trafficking gang. He couldn't reveal his true identity to anyone. 6 months ago, the gang attacked him, and he was shot in the leg, leaving him bedridden in the hospital. He tried to contact me, but had no way to reach me. Now recovered, he had come to reveal the truth and declare his love for me. Hearing his explanation, my family softened. Rahi brought his parents to formally ask for my hand in marriage, and soon we got married. Today, I'm living happily with Rahi, who loves and treats me like a queen. He has taken responsibility for my family like a son and fulfills all my wishes. I realized that love requires understanding and trust, and I am truly blessed to have Rahi in my life. I hope you liked our story. If you enjoyed it, please like the video. If you are new to the channel, do subscribe and press the notification bell so that you get the next update first.